I mentioned that I was the MC at the Community Transport Organisation annual conference up in Bathurst, which was great. Got to visit my old and first radio station where I started back in 1973. But it was a real eye-opener for me. Now, if you've listened to me for any length of time, and I've been back doing talk radio for 10 years or more, transport is a big issue in my mind for Sydney. But this is what we're talking about here, community transport. So it's not public transport or private transport provided by the community. And there is a community transport organisation, and its pretty new CEO, she hasn't been in the job a few months, is the former mayor of the Baulkham Hills Shire Council, and it's Sonya Phillips. She's on the line. G'day.
G'day. How are you, Tim?
I'm good. How are you?
You again.
Yeah.
Sensational. Thank you.
You too. This is a big job you've taken on.
Well, it is. It's very challenging, but, you know, it's very rewarding, anything to do with the community and the outcomes of... It's always a big tick in my mind. A bit like you, Tim, we're very community-minded, and I think this is something that deserves the exposure that it needs to get. Yeah,
it does. Now, I tell you, it opened my mind and my heart to some of the stories that I heard up in Bathurst, and it's a challenge, isn't it, to simply get people who are ill or disabled or just going shopping from one place to the other.
Tim, it is, and it's because community transport, I think, is one of the quiet achievers in the community. It started back in Bathurst. That's why we had the Back to Bathurst conference, and thank you for emceeing that. We had a great time. But it is about what the community needs, and each community is different, and we're going through a lot of change, and it'll change even more in the run-up to 2015. But, you know, people say, oh, what does community transport do? But until we start talking about things like a door-to-door service, service on request, where volunteers come and pick you up and you go to medical appointments or shopping, social events, including day activities. And there's little or no cost to here because it's subsidised and it's a very, very low cost, if any, and the drivers are accredited and they have that personal touch. And it's not until you start talking about the buses that people see around their community that they really know what community transport does.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the issues, of course, and we had some government representatives there, and no criticism of them really, because a couple have only been in the job for 5 minutes, basically.
5 minutes,
so the funding is going from state to federal, and therein lies some uncertainty.
Precisely. This goes back to a COAG meeting held during the previous many prime ministerial government regime. However, it was a bipartisan agreement, and from 2015, state funding will virtually cease. Up until then, all the health funding came from the federal government, and the disability funding came from the state. But now they will go, and there's pilot programs taking place in Newcastle at the moment, under the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Now, there's no outcomes as yet, but what we do know is that all the funding will come from the federal government. They will be a package-based funding where people will look after their own money, or if it's a child, a minor, then somebody will be appointed to look after that money. And people will have to tender for the provision of community transport.
Right, yeah. Now,
what we do know, and of course this is the scary bit for all of my community transport providers, is that that transport will have to be on a full cost recovery basis. And our question to the federal government is why. There is no transport that is not subsidised, no public transport that's not subsidised. So why would community transport have to be on a full cost recovery basis?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you know, just a couple of the stories, just so the listeners understand this. I mean, getting from a place like Bourke to Dubbo, which I think is about, a 5.5, 6 hour drive, because we can't get doctors to go to Bourke, so these patients have to come from Bourke to Dubbo to see a specialist, and you've got to fill up the bus before you go. So, I mean, some people, and the other story that really terrified me was up in the north coast of New South Wales, where people were going for radiation treatment to a hospital a few hours away and simply stopped going because it all became too hard. Now, in a country like ours, Sonya, we can't allow that to happen.
Precisely. See, the thing is, Tim, chronic health patients, the funding arrangement as it is at the moment says, well, chronic health patients, dialysis, cancer patients, etc., well, that should come under health. But nobody picks up that. So how do these people get their treatment for radiation, etc., particularly people that are on dialysis? That's a daily thing.
Absolutely.
They can't afford that trip. We have bariatric patients, which is an increasing concern, people that are wheelchair bound but are morbidly obese. They simply can't get that transport. The only people that tries to pick up that gap in society is community transport.
Absolutely.
And as we get older, and we are in what they call the super age now.
We are?
We're the baby boomers.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could, and there's statistics and more statistics and damn lies, but can I just perhaps share with you some of the statistics? Like, one of the big things that's going to happen in the future is dementia.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, 70% of the people in Australia with dementia at the moment live in the community, but 80% of those people need transport because they can no longer drive. Now, that's just dementia, and everybody can understand, and there's a touchstone with dementia, right?
Yes.
But those chronic health people, let's look at people that are over 65. God forbid we're that old. You know what I mean? In Australia, there's approximately 3 million people over 65.
Yeah. And that will increase. That will increase because,
Absolutely.
I mean, John Watkins was there, who's the former Deputy Premier of our state and now the boss of Alzheimer's Australia, giving us figures that in 20 years there will be a lot more people over 100, Sonia. Many, many more over 80.
There's 3,700 people over 100 at this time. And as John said, I think he said, that's the size of a town of Forbes.
Yes, he did, yeah.
Now, in 2050... which is not that far away when you think about it, it's certainly in our children's lifetime, there'll be 70,000 people
over 100. Yeah.
That's the size, I think he said, of the town of Coffs Harbour.
Yeah. They're,
So who's going to pick up the gap in community transport? I just don't think that our federal politicians, and I'm certainly going to be knocking on their door.
I'm sure you will. Yeah.
But I just don't think they understand that this is such an integral part of the community. It is critical to people that are aged, disabled, and their carers.
Absolutely. Well, just to emphasise the point, Ruth has called us in. Hi, Ruth.
Hello, Tim.
Hi.
I was just very interested in listening to that. I'm disabled with osteoarthritis.
Yes.
I use the Southern Community Transport.
Yep.
They are absolutely wonderful.
That's wonderful.
You couldn't do without them, Ruth, I'm sure.
No, I have to sometimes. I live in Cabramatta.
Yes.
And I sometimes have to go to Hammondville to see the professor at the university.
And they come and pick you up and take you.
Yeah, it cost me $10. And I've got somebody with me, they're nothing, you know. And they know I can't get into a bus, so they subcontract a taxi or get a car for me. Yep. And they're absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, good on you, Ruth. Thanks for calling, hey?
Thank you.
Yeah. See, that's it, Sonia. I mean, that's
a great news story.
That's the story in a nutshell. Now,
and that happens every day all across Australia.
Now, look, can my listeners help you? I was speaking to a lovely bloke who was a retired plumber from Young, and he said, Timmy, I'd finished work and I thought, well, I can't play golf 2 or 3 times a week, so he became a community transport driver and absolutely loves it.
Loves it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're certainly always looking for volunteers, and I have to say, Tim, in New South Wales, with the support of Minister Gladys Berejiklian, who is an outstanding minister, I have to say, in this state. She really knows community transport and will often just pop in and say hello.
Great.
Which is sensational. But with her help, we have actually now got driver accreditation. So anyone that wants to volunteer, they go through an accreditation process, so everyone knows that they are accredited to drive, they're well, they're fit, they're healthy, but they're also compassionate.
Oh, what a good idea.
So that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That means just a visit to the doctor.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted my listeners to know about this because with this ageing population of ours, if we don't do something about this in the next little while, I mean, you talked about our kids will end up having to pay for it through their taxation. And it just worries me. If you've got 70,000 people over 100, that means there's probably going to be 250,000 over 80 or 90. And that's it. Yeah, absolutely. And, someone's going to have to pay. Yeah.
Actually, at the moment, there's nearly 500,000 people over 85. So, it's
staggering.
Growing and growing.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Now, give us a website. If our listeners are interested, they can come and visit you and see what they can do.
We're just about to put up a new website, and it'll be the same www, as you say, Tim, all the W's.
All your W's, yeah.
CTO.org.au.
That's easy, yeah.
But if they want to contact me at the office, my number is 02 9635 8980.
Right.
And if there's any possibility, if they're good friends with their federal member of parliament, we don't want them knocking on their door all the time, but just simply to say, can you perhaps just get, a handle on what this community transport is all about?
Yeah, you've just really hit the nail on the head there. I think what needs to happen, and what I gleaned from the government reps that were there in Bathurst, I don't really think they've got a handle on it, and they need to, the federal reps, get a handle on this, realise how important it is, realise how important their role in it is, and then we can roll on from there.
Fantastic.
Righto. Good to talk to you.
Thanks so much.
Have a good Sunday. Yeah. Sonya Phillips, who used to be the very active Mayor of the Baulkham Hills Shire Council, now taken on this job as the Chief Executive of the Community Transport Organisation. Very, very much needed, as you heard from Ruth.